how do we attain mastery of ourselves during challenging times? One could arguably say that now and the future is becoming more and more challenging in the world. There are lots of issues that people have a lot of concerns about. There's a lot of situations, relationships are being rocked. Even spiritual masters talk about how the planet is being shaken right now in its awakening. So how do we deal with this? Well, I look for myself on what's worked and what hasn't worked over the last 20 or so years, let's say. And I would say I'm an above average, reflective, contemplative person, partly because of the path of being a brahmachari, a celibate monk that I've chosen. And also it just sort of came naturally for me to look for within myself, you could say, or look for meaning in myself. So recently I've experienced, I would say, challenging times. Arguably every day, right? I have a number of very close relationships in my life. I work with a number of people. I'm in a number of different roles. And relationships and situations always reflect, I think, opportunities for us to grow. So globally challenging times, fine, or micro challenging times within our world, within our own microcosm. How do we deal with that, right? So the first thing that we want to do, and you'll see this in a lot of our teachings of what we offer, is allow. Notice what is happening inside of us, become aware of it, and allow it to be there. That's the number one thing, because it all comes back to us and our experience of the world. One person could think it's glorious what's happening on the planet and it's amazing, and another person could be depressed and anxious and hopeless about it, right? It's all about perspective. That person has allowed certain feelings to be present in their world, and people that are more, I would say, generally unhappy resist feeling emotions and feelings and experiences inside of them. And by resisting those things, they stick around, right? Or they get angry or frustrated about it and add a whole layer of experience. Not that that's bad or good, of course, no judgment. It just isn't helpful or effective if we want to transform and become some other version of ourselves that's better. So number one, allow the feeling that exists. Let's say you're feeling hopeless about global warming and climate change, and you're just like, there's no future for this. Nothing's changing. People aren't changing their practices. The world's getting hotter. More people are suffering in the world. And you've got a lot of feelings about it. Fine, right? It's fine to have whatever feelings you want to have about it based on your perspective. Just let them be there. Right? Accept and allow those experiences and those feelings to be there without resisting them. Forget about the situation out there for just a minute and deal with yourself. Allow them to be there such that they can transform. Now, just because you feel good about yourself doesn't mean that you're feeling callous towards the rest of the world that's going through, in this case, climate change, right? Just focus on you for a minute, because you'll become more effective around whatever you want to do in a couple more minutes, all right? So number one, just allow. Number two, take ownership. And what that means, two levels to this. Take ownership of your own feelings, your own experience, your own perspective, your own paradigm or your programming that creates a certain perspective, and take ownership for the role that you play in the thing that you might be upset about. Let's talk about a global impact around climate change. Okay, shift how you live your life if that's a thing that's really important to you, right? Shift your own carbon emissions, your own fossil fuel, whatever it is for you. Just using that as an example. Shift that. Take some ownership around the impact that you have on it. And then the trick is, don't judge other people who don't do what you do, right? Just focus on what you can own in this moment around what your actions are, right? Number two, own your impact on relationships. I firmly believe that our experience of the world is reflected in and created by the relationships that we create in our lives. So the people that you have an impact with, look at the relationship of each one of those people and look at what you put into the relationship. The relationship itself, we could say, is an entity. It's a commodity. We talk about it as a hollow tube. And so look at what you're putting into the relationship. Are you putting in judgment? Are you putting in resistance? Are you putting in frustration or impatience or lack of acceptance of the person? Are you putting that into the relationship? Own that that's yours and you take it back, such that you create more of that clear tube with the relationship and with the person that you seemingly really care about, right? And then look at what you're owning for yourself. right? Own that you are the creator of your life experience. Now, for a lot of people, they can't take this on because the fact or the possibility, let's say, that everything that happens to and around us is our own creation is too much to handle. There's a lot of pain. There's a lot of suffering. If you dive into some of the deep spiritual teachings of the East, really, and the West, you'll see that this is a discovery that people with a very high level of consciousness have seen around how we really do create our own life experience and our own reality. And I would say, a practitioner of exploring the ownership of that impact, meaning when anything kind of bad happens to me, which interestingly enough, less and less bad things happen to me in my life because I've explored this degree of ownership in my life and owning that my reality is completely my creation. You will unlock something tremendous when you start to live from the place of, I am the creator of my life experience. I create and shape my own reality. It is mind-blowing, in some ways literally, that this is a fact, and it's totally true, I assure you. So own what you can, own and go into the frontier of exploring how much you can own. And then the third piece is take action. So allow, ownership, and act. Allow, own, and act. Take actions that are in alignment with your belief system, your paradigm, how you want the world to be. For example, let's say you have done a lot of ownership and a lot of allowing of feelings in a certain relationship. Let's call it a romantic relationship or a familiar relationship. And that person just isn't shifting. And you may make the choice to step away from that relationship. It doesn't mean that you don't love them or care about them, but you might complete that relationship in some way. You might break up with the person. You might decide to take time away from the family member. You might move out. You might move in somewhere else. And as soon as we make those kinds of decisions based on actions that are in alignment with what we really want for ourselves, based on ownership and not blaming the other person, based on what we are doing for ourselves, and we do that action with heart and with care and with ownership in our language and ownership in our belief system, then what's amazing is that when we take that step out of something, immediately, and I'm talking immediately within like a day, an hour, a few hours, maybe a couple days at most, whenever we make a clear decision to step out of something, something else will be created for us to step into. Now, that might take a certain level of action around vulnerability, around reaching out to people and asking for support, which is a huge vulnerable act that takes courage. Courage is the act of vulnerability in the face of fear, in my definition. So if we take actions rooted in courage, that are for our best, for our highest, that is like us stepping into a greater version of ourselves. I've never seen this happen where people have taken that kind of action and it hasn't worked out, when they have followed it through to its end and the person has reached more and more towards their goal. So allow, own, and act, and you will, when you practice this, attain great mastery in these challenging times. All my best to you.